Today's show is all about show prep. Show prep, preparing for a show. But there are some surprise elements to what I'm actually talking about on today's episode of Casting Actors Cast.
Welcome to Casting Actors Cast. It's the podcast for actors in the business of show. Here is your host, Jeffrey Dreisbach.
Well, hello and welcome to this episode of Casting Actors Cast. So cool that you decided to join us today. I'm Jeffrey Dreisbach, casting director with McCorkle Casting in New York. How are you? I hope you're having a good day. I'm having a really good day, and I'm really looking forward to today's podcast we're calling Show Prep. But I'm not just talking about preparation to do the show. I'm talking about what the actor needs to do to prepare for the audition. Because you know what? An audition is a show. It really is. It's your opportunity to show your stuff. So we're going to talk about audition preparation and some really good tips and suggestions that you're going to find very, very useful. But first, as you know, if you're a regular listener to Casting Actors Cast, this is that moment in the podcast where I want to say thank you so very much for tuning in. It's so glad that you're here. We are increasing our numbers exponentially here at Casting Actors Cast, and we're so grateful that you're taking the time to listen and watch because we're now on YouTube. So if you haven't checked out the YouTube channel, please do that. It's called the Casting Actors Cast channel. All you have to do is type in Casting Actors Cast on YouTube, and that channel will come up. Why don't you think about being a subscriber? That would really be awesome. If you're listening on iTunes, for example, boy, would it mean so much to me if you were to just simply click like. I would love to make sure that I get improvement in the rankings. I'm kind of a glutton, and I love all of the 15,000 plus people that have tuned into Casting Actors Cast, but I want more. So, sorry, I couldn't help it. If you would be so kind, and any podcast provider that you listen to, please do a like and a share. All of that stuff really means so much to me. After all, we're delivering these podcasts absolutely free of charge, and I really love doing them as long as there are listeners out there. So that helps me know that you're out there. Also, by the way, if you go to castingactorscast.com, there's some freebies, some downloadable PDFs that correspond to some of the previous podcast episodes. You'll see some previous podcast episodes right there that you can just click and listen to right away. Also, by filling out the information form called Dive into the Talent Pool, get it? If you do that, it'll actually take you to a place where you can download a 100-page PDF book called Conversation Pieces Out of the Studio, the voiceover workshop for professional actors. It's all about doing voiceover work. So if that's something that you've had some interest in, I think you're going to find this book very, very useful, and I'm giving it away 100 pages absolutely free of charge as my thanks. So thank you very much for that shameless promotional announcement. And please keep on listening to these podios, these podcast videos. We're calling them podios. So I also wanted to bring up something that I thought was really, really exciting, and a really dear friend who at one time was a super agent here in New York City to Edward Norton and Chris Noth, and her name is Roseanne Gates, and she's written a really fantastic book, which is in the 4th edition, called How to Succeed in the Business of Show Business. And she is actually putting together an intensive. It's a 3-hour business of acting workshop, and it's taking place on Saturday, November 2nd, in New York City at the Shelter Studios Theater, which is 244 West 54th Street. So she's going to be doing a workshop, and guess what? I'm going to be a guest on her workshop. So it'd be great a chance for you and I to say hello, to meet. I would love to have some listeners of Casting Actors Cast show up and join Roseanne. I think this is going to be a really exciting workshop, sort of dispelling all of those rumors and myths about what it is behind the scenes. And she really, this is somebody who really knows. You're going to get a free copy of her book. There's going to be a question and answer period with Roseanne. Thrown into that, this is kind of unbelievable. A really wonderful headshot photographer by the name of Suzanne Sheridan is going to give you a free session as part of this entire workshop. That's crazy, right? And so you need to go and get a ticket. And that is at, I'm just going to say it once, if you're on Casting Actors Cast YouTube channel, I'm going to put it up graphically, but it's Actors Intensive NYC 2019.eventbrite.com. I'm going to say that one more time. Actors Intensive NYC 2019.eventbrite.com. And there you're going to find even more information. You're going to find out the cost, exactly the location address, and that's taking place on Saturday, November 2nd. Free copy of the book, free headshots as part of the whole deal, a chance for you and I to meet. What could be better? It would really be great to support both Suzanne and Roseanne, because they're not only great people, but they know what they're talking about. They know what they're doing. So I hope to see you there. So now let's talk about some mailbag stuff. I did get a letter that I really want to respond. So let's just take that moment now out of this podcast and respond to some mail that I got a week ago.
Okay, let's check out this week's mail. Just go to castingactorscast.com and fill out the comment form. It's easy.
So here's today's mailbag. It's from a gentleman named Mark, and I'm going to read the question as I received it. And I want to thank you in advance, Mark. Anybody who has a question, please go to castingactorscast.com, fill out the form. There's a place for you to ask the question. I'm happy to respond to it on the air if I can, and help you help others. It's that's the way it works here. So this is his email. Jeffrey, in one of your upcoming podcasts, might you be able to talk about how one's reputation within the industry can affect a career? If one has had an experience with a director or a producer that was problematic, how might that experience affect the actor when the question comes up? How is he or she to work with? And that question does come up. Or when an agent or casting director makes a call to do research on a performer. He also says, I haven't made a practice of being difficult to work with, but I have had some creative differences in the past. And thank you so much for that question, Mark. And that's, I love the question because it really does address some of the issues and some of the things that we've talked about in some previous podcasts. And that is that your reputation is something that you have to grow and continue to develop over time. And if you've had creative differences with a director, that should not be cause for you to have any distress. And here's the reason why. Anytime a casting director, and I can speak for myself, is asked to do some additional research, we might take that on ourselves, by the way. If we're not that familiar with your work, we think that you might be right for a particular role, but we want to make sure that when we bring you in, we have as much information at our disposal as possible. So what we're going to do is do that research. Well, we'll call a director that you might have on your resume, or we'll call somebody that you worked with in the show. You know, it's a very, how do I say this? It's a very small community, after all, much smaller than you might think. And Pat or myself or Katya in our office or Nathan, we have no problem picking up the phone and finding out more about you and how you are to work with. So if something has taken place, we're going to hear that. But that does not mean that's, overdone, what's gone. That you don't lose out necessarily because the director didn't like you and didn't have the nicest things to say about you. Because here's why. If we call a director and he has negative things to say, we're going to find out from another source. In other words, we're going to keep investigating and keep looking until we are satisfied that you are a good performer, the right person to bring in, that your work and play well with others is part of who you are. All of those things get vetted out. We don't just trust one source. However, I will also say that if that is a situation where you feel it's haunting you and keeping you from other opportunities, my feeling is this: I think you got to get it out in the open. I think you have to make it up front, whether it's in the first meeting at an audition or maybe it's at a callback and they're trying to figure out if you're going to be okay or not, that you bring it up. You say, you know what, I had a great time with this production and I really enjoyed performing, but the director and I had creative differences and I hope that you don't hold that against me. I feel like I'm a team player and I would hope that that doesn't keep me from participating in other really wonderful projects such as yours. Somebody write that down because that was really, really good. So you can do some creative corrective measures in order to nip it in the bud if it seems to be an issue. If it's a meeting with an agent, then that's another story. That would mean in that meeting with that agent, you have to say exactly what took place and exactly what you did about it and your whole attitude and outlook as a result of that experience. You can say, yeah, you know, I was in a different space then and I didn't get along with this particular director because he seemed to be pushing some buttons, but I can assure you that's not who I am now, and I really feel so much better about being in the creative process and collaborating with other people. You know what? Somebody should write that down because that was really, really good. So there are things that you can do to correct it. Please don't live in a place where one bad situation colors your entire experience, because that can be, that can be a burden, and you don't need to be burdened by that. You can nip it in the bud, be straightforward, be upfront, be honest, and just rest assured that we are going to do our part to make sure that if we get one source that is not as kind, we'll go to another source and then another source. We'll go to as many sources as we can to get the most information we can about whatever the situation was. So I hope that makes you feel better. That was my intention, and that really is the reality. A lot of people just don't kind of like to own up to past situations, and they try to divert. And I can tell you from my experience that reputation follows that person longer. And if you get a reputation of being difficult to work with, but you're really, really such an excellent talent that it's something we might consider overlooking, I can tell you right now that that's less and less becoming the case. You see, this is a buyer's market. And there are a lot of really talented people out there who can deliver the goods and maybe might not be difficult to work with at the same time. Something to consider. Again, thank you, Mark, for the question. Let's talk about show prep. That's the whole theme and the title of today's podcast. And when I talk about show prep, an audition is like a show. It's your moment to shine. From walking into the room to saying your name to introducing yourself or being introduced to the entire group, that is your show. And so I love it when things happen in the course of a week and it just kind of knocks me between the eyes and says, you know what, that would make a really, really good podcast video. That would really be great. And that's what happened this week as I am working on casting the national tour of Turning 15 on the Road to Freedom, which is a new play. And it's about the March on Selma in the 60s. And it's the main character is a 15-year-old girl who was arrested 9 times because she marched on all of these civil rights movements that took place in the Deep South in the 1960s with Martin Luther King. And so it's a really wonderful musical. It's got music. All of the ensemble plays several different characters. So you have to have excellent voice. You have to really be a strong actor. We gave out not only lyrics to some songs to sing a cappella, that's without piano. We also gave out sides that had a monologue from the show. So it was a book, and now we've turned it into a musical. And what was amazing to me is we had the 2 producers, we had the director, we had the music director, And we had myself and my assistant were in the casting. And so there were 6 people there, and we were sort of watching what was taking place. And I was just amazed at how, when the director made a request of one of the actors during the audition, that actor couldn't fulfill that obligation. Here's one example. The director said, "I really liked the way you did the monologue, but do you have another monologue, something in your back pocket that you would like to do that could just show me something else?" I was absolutely amazed that there were several actors who said, no, I don't have anything else. I just worked on this. I'm sorry. What? As a performer, it is really important that you have a couple of pieces at least in your back pocket that you've worked on, that you're comfortable with. You never know what you're going to be asked in an audition. If you've got, I can do a handspring on your resume under special skills, you can bet that there's going to be an audition where someone asks you to do some handsprings. Are you ready to do the handsprings? So when I say show prep, I'm talking about keeping an entire list, a categorized list of those things that you can show if called upon to do so. So please have a couple of prepared monologues. Have something, a funny contemporary monologue, have a more classical piece, have something that is very, very emotional, have something that is very, very quirky, whatever. Have a couple of monologues in your back pocket, please. You just never know. And it's the difference between getting a callback or not. You don't want to be, well, okay, if you don't have anything, thank you very much for coming in, which is what we did to several actors. That was awful. So don't do that. The other question and the other request that we got many times was, do you have something else in your book that you could sing for us a cappella? Let's see, I see on your resume that you did this show. There's a song in that show that I really like. Would you mind singing something from that show? What was amazing is actors were like, sure, of course. And they just started singing something from the show. It was like, oh my gosh, that was fantastic. Really smart. It showed so many things, right? It showed that the actor was sharp. It showed that the actor actually did the show. But if you're caught and you have something on your resume that you didn't do, or perhaps it was so long ago, be up to date on all of your music. For all of your musical theater folks out there, you know what I'm talking about. It's called the book. If you're strictly interested in being an actor, you should at least have 2 songs ready to sing a cappella. I know, you may hate the idea of singing. You may hate your voice. Get over it. You just never know when you're going to be asked to do those kinds of things in an audition environment. So that's show prep. So it's not just remembering your picture and resume. It's not just having another monologue or 2 in your back pocket if you're asked for it. It's not just having a couple of songs in your back pocket, although that's really, really a good idea. It's having a whole book ready and raring to go. It's making sure you're up to date on those special skills, and your preparation before every audition would be going through that checklist. I promise you, I'm going to save you a lot of heartache, and I'm going to make you some money if you've listened to what I've just told you. It's really, really valuable. It's really, really important, because the best feedback you'll ever get in the professional arena is a callback. And so the goal when you walk into the audition is not to book the job. It's to be asked back so you can show me how you are going to play that part. I know I've said that many, many times. So a back pocket monologue and a song is really those things you have to bring with you. But here's the biggest thing of all that I was surprised at during the auditions. We had 2 full days of auditions and then a half day of the callbacks this week for this project. And that was, please remember to bring joy, your joyful, happy self. You know, I think it's important to look at an audition as an opportunity to perform your one-person show. I think that's a healthy approach. I can't tell you how many times the actors were so nervous that it really prevented them from doing good work. And what's so heartbreaking is that you see the potential in that person, and inside you're going, please don't be nervous. Please just have fun with this. Please just be outward. Show it's an outward expression. And that many actors just felt that they were being observed and self-conscious. And this was a non-union project, but that's no excuse. There's a lot of non-union shows going on out there. We don't, at McCorkle Casting, where I'm a casting person, we don't do just union productions. Predominantly we do. Most productions we do are union productions, but there are those, like this is a real special show that we wanted to participate in. We really loved the show, and it's a non-union production. So there's no excuse. Union doesn't make any difference to us in terms of your talent. So bring joy. Bring joy when you walk into the room. Also, be direct. Be very direct. When you're talking and introducing yourself, or you're being introduced to those people in the room, look at each person. Make eye contact. The subtext should be, I'm so glad for this opportunity. Now, I'm not talking that you have to kiss my ass. I'm not saying that. I am saying that it's an opportunity for you to perform. It's an opportunity for me to see you at your best. So why not bring it? Right? Bring your best to the audition. That's all I'm asking. So that's what I call show prep. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Casting Actors Cast. If you have any questions, if you have something to add, please don't forget to go to castingactorscast.com. Thanks so much for listening and watching, and have an awesome day. Thanks.
Casting Actors Cast is made possible with your support just by listening. Please like, share, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.